globalization. Okay, it's a word we hear all the time, right? It's thrown around in news reports, in political debates, but what does it actually mean? It feels like one of those massive ideas that's somehow everywhere and nowhere all at once. So today, we're going to try and demystify it.
And we've got to start with the biggest question people are asking right now. Is it all over? I mean, all you hear about is trade wars, nations putting up tariffs, this big push towards deglobalization. It seriously feels like the world is pulling apart after spending decades coming together. But to answer that, we first need to get a handle on what we thought globalization was in the first place.
For a really long time, especially back in the 90s after the Cold War, this was the go-to definition. Globalization just blew up as a buzzword used by politicians like Tony Blair. The whole idea was pretty simple. A single future, shaped by capitalism, where we just get rid of restrictions on trade and let goods, services, and money flow freely across borders.
And this slide just nails the central conflict. On one side, you've got that big 90s promise of unrestricted free trade. And on the other, today's reality of tariffs and national protectionism. So yeah, if you only look at it through this economic lens, it's really easy to think globalization is ending. But that super limited view misses the real story entirely.
So, to figure out where globalization is really headed, we first need to reframe the question. It isn't just one single thing. It's more like a puzzle. And as we're about to see, economists, sociologists, and politicians are all looking at completely different pieces.
And here's the first big twist in all of this. Globalization isn't new, not at all. While the word got super popular in the 90s, the process it describes, well, that's an ancient human story. We've been connecting, trading, and moving across huge distances for centuries.
Just take a look at this timeline. We've got archaeological evidence that way back in the 14th century, the Kingdom of Great Zimbabwe was already trading with places as far away as China and Iran. Then you jump to 1492, and Columbus's voyage reconnects the Americas with Europe and Asia after 10,000 years of separation. When you look at it this way, most of human history has been this slow, gradual process of us all reconnecting. So the crucial point here is, what we call globalization today isn't some new thing. It's just a faster, much more visible version of a very, very old process.
Okay, so if it's more than just a 90s economic trend, what exactly is it? Let's break it down into three key dimensions that really show how globalization is about way more than just money.
First up, the cultural dimension. This is all about the global spread of ideas, practices, and, the stuff we buy and consume every single day, from the music on our playlists to the food we eat.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because it illustrates this incredible paradox. On one hand, you have homogenization, the spread of Western consumer culture that makes things feel more and more similar everywhere. Think Hollywood movies, fast food chains, hip-hop music. But at the exact same time, this process creates more diversity. It leads to totally new cultural hybrids, new mixes of global and local. And it also sparks resistance, as local cultures push back to reassert their own identity.
Now for the second dimension, politics. Because globalization isn't just changing our tastes, it's fundamentally reshaping power and how the world is run.
For decades, we saw the spread of big ideas like liberal democracy. But at the same time, the power of individual countries is being challenged. You've got these huge transnational corporations, TNCs, that now have budgets bigger than some countries. You have organizations like the European Union making decisions that bind entire nations. And, maybe most importantly, we're facing truly global problems like climate change and pandemics that no single country, no matter how powerful, can possibly solve on its own.
And finally, that brings us to the third dimension, the one we started with, economics. This is all about the deep financial and commercial integration of the entire world.
And this is a perfect way to picture how it works. Think about your smartphone or your TV. The raw materials probably came from a bunch of different countries. The parts were assembled in another country to take advantage of cheaper labor. The branding and marketing was handled by a massive corporation in a developed country, and then it's sold to people like you all over the world. This creates this incredibly powerful network, but it also creates a kind of hierarchy, where developed nations often end up at the top, benefiting the most from this complex global system. So, we have these three powerful dimensions, cultural, political, and economic, all weaving together. But even when you lay it all out like that, the experts are still locked in this huge debate about what's really going on.
And the central economic question really boils down to this. Are we living in a single, truly integrated global economy, or is it something else entirely? Some researchers argue that the whole idea of one single world market is actually a myth.
According to thinkers like Thompson, the world is actually divided into 3 major regional trading blocks. As you can see right here, most of the trade and investment from companies in the Americas stays within the Americas. The same is true for Europe and for the Asia-Pacific region. There are very few companies that are genuinely global. This suggests that what we're actually seeing might be regionalization, not true globalization.
But then, you get a moment like the 2008 financial crisis. Now, that crisis might have slowed down economic globalization and led to less free trade for a while. But here's the massive paradox. The very fact that a banking crisis starting in the US could absolutely cripple economies across the entire planet was the ultimate proof of just how deeply interconnected we had all become.
So what's the final takeaway here? Globalization isn't a finished product. It's not some destination that we've arrived at. And it's definitely not something that can just be over. It is a messy, complicated, centuries-old process, a journey that is constantly changing shape, speeding up in some areas while slowing down in others. It's a force that pulls us together and pushes us apart, a lot of the time, all at once. The journey isn't over. It's just entering a new, way more unpredictable chapter. Which leaves us with the real question: where is it taking us next?